wrong camera. What am I doing? Welcome back to Boys in the Zone. I am EJ Savage. If you are the first time listener here at the show, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Today we have a special guest, my guy Falcon, 00. Hopefully I got that right. Follow him on Twitter. He's a knowledgeable guy. He always gets in my chats and talks it up. And I figured he's always in here. Might as well bring him on the show. And so, how are you doing, man?
Good. How are you doing? Appreciate you bringing me on. Knowledgeable is a bit of a stretch. I speak what I see. All right, we'll call it that way.
Hey, what you see is knowledgeable in how I see it as well. So,
Appreciate it.
we got my boy KHY001. Always got to shout him out in the chat. And man, 33-10, the Carolina game at Carolina. So we had a big-ish day. We can't really call it a big day, but as far as road victories go, it was by 23 points, and that's good for the Cowboys
Yeah.
because they're typically averaging, I think, like 20 some on the road versus 40 at home. So to
Yeah.
average 33 or to get that win at 33 was a big deal. Obviously aided by the Deron Bland history-making interception return.
Tied the record.
And we'll get into that a little bit more. But just off the top of your head, what was the most important piece of that game, or the thing that stood out the most to you?
Overall, it's the fact that you kind of mentioned that we haven't been doing that well on the road. And historically, games like this, Dallas doesn't win. Like when it's an opponent that we're quote unquote punching down to, we tend to find a way to lose that game. Like throughout history, that's what it's been. We find a way to somehow lose the game. And that didn't happen at this point. Like we were talking about a little bit earlier, when it comes to the history of us like watching a game and being worried, there was never a point during that entire game that I was like, shit, here we go again. I was just like, all right, you gave up a long drive, you gave up a score. Dak, get out there, do your thing. Micah, stop throwing up, get out there and do your thing now. And I was joking with his brother after the game on Twitter, and I was like, yo, give me his address. I'm sending Micah a case of that if that's how he plays. Like, portion appropriately, but I got a case on me. I'm sending him right now if that's how he plays after he's had C4.
Yeah. No, I mean,
he was on another level, and that's saying something for him.
Yeah, I mean, the name is right for it because he had a blow up type of game. So yeah, C4,
Yeah.
man. Obviously he threw up on the sideline. I guess he took like a full scoop of it, is the story, and he said that he was just, his heart was beating out of his chest, and he even pulled a trainer over and was like, "Yo, help me out here." But ultimately, 2.5 sacks, so that ties his career high, and he had a monster game. I think that when Micah is playing like that over the center and especially causing the problems in the middle, that is when he is his very best.
Yeah, it's going to be really hard to stop him when he's doing that, especially if you let him get hot, because then other guys are just going to feed off of that. And I know a lot of the time this year, the narrative that you hear about that defensive line is, where's DeMarcus Law? What is he doing? D-Law's not showing up. And it's like, watch those sacks. You literally see the reason that I think it was the first sack that Micah got. That was because of D-Law. Like, he absorbed those two dudes right in front of him. He got his hands out there, and Micah just ran around him and got the sack.
Yeah.
Like, that's where his numbers are coming up. It's not just that stat line. They're playing for each other. So if Micah is getting double teamed and D-Law is getting double teamed, you're going to see Osa pushing up the middle and getting pressure on him too. So we need to start as fans looking at that and identifying, being like, hey, pressure is just as good as sacks, and these dudes are doing their job up front. Like, they absolutely are. And they did it again in the Carolina game. Like, there's no doubting that.
And to your point,
I think we had 5 total.
5 total sacks, I think. Yeah. Sounds about right. And I think this is the 3rd straight game, I want to say, with Sam Williams getting a sack. So he's come on as of late. And I think that our first round rookie, Mozzie Smith, has played another little, string together game where he's proven that, hey, I can kind of get in here and get in the mix, get some tackles, get some pressures. And he's looked good. Still slow off the ball, still needs to explode out of his stance, but he is getting better. And that's what you want to see, is just development from these younger guys.
Yeah, and to the Mozzie point, that's not really what he did in college.
Yeah.
Like, he was never that big, all right, I'm going after the quarterback guy. He was that big, run at me, try it type guy. And he has done fairly well at that. Has he been the best in the league at it? No, I'm not saying that by any means, but he's done well. And now he's exposing this new element to his game, and he is working on it. It's getting better and better. So I can't knock it at all. Like, I'm a Michigan guy, obviously, so I'm happy about that. But I'm good with where Mozzie is right now. I think he's going to continue to develop, and then next year we'll see another jump in him again.
Yeah. And another like somebody told me at work, he was like, "I think you're wrong about Luke Schoonmaker," and I was like, "Bro, he had two catches now. Come on now." But with that being said, since we do have a Michigan fan here, what is your thoughts about Luke Schoonmaker versus what he was asked to do at Michigan? Is whenever I watched him on film and stuff like that, he was more of a blocking tight end,
Yeah.
and he could do some of the stuff because he was athletic in the passing department. We really haven't seen that very much from him this season, but that was a very athletic grab to go up there and get that ball. That's typically Ferguson, and if you remember
Yep.
early in the season, Schoonmaker had a chance at another ball like that straight up the seam, about the same spot on the field, and he dropped it. And it was a perfect dime pass from Dak. This time he catches it, so he is making that development. He's keeping an eye on the ball. He's
Yeah.
going up there and grabbing. Obviously, you want more from him. He only has 5 catches still, 2 of them for a touchdown grab. But what was your assessment of him?
So the run blocking characteristic can't really be denied. Like that's been proven time and time again. He is a great blocker out there. Is he Witten caliber? No, like he's not. But when it comes to the blocking, we're good. We're solid. He's going to continue to get better and better throughout his career.
Yeah.
The catching aspect of it, he wasn't really asked to do that much in Michigan, like you pointed out. But when they did call his number, he would usually go up and get it. Like it wasn't a lot, but he would make those catches, or at least be damn close to getting those catches, like right off his fingertip style. Because you already know I'm high on McCarthy. I think that he's a good quarterback. I'm not saying he's number one pick, but he is a good quarterback. So he put him in a good position for that. But through the course of the year, you're kind of seeing him develop more and more to where it's like, okay, Dak is getting a little more confidence in him. And after that first pass that season, like you mentioned, that he missed it, we've seen him go to Ferguson on that numerous times. And even Ferguson drops him, but he still keeps going back to that. And they're connecting a lot on it.
Yeah.
So like when that play happened, I was just like, and I was like, that's not Ferg's number. What just happened here?
Yeah.
And then I realized, okay, Scoon, let's go. Keep developing that. So I think he's going to end up being better as the years go on and even the season goes on. I don't know if he's ever going to be a true number one tight end though.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest about that. I think he's going to be more of that 6 offensive linemen supposedly that you bring into block. That's what I think his like forte is going to be.
Yeah. And it's strange because you think about the tight ends on this roster and on the practice squad or on IR. You got John Stevens, who showed a lot during preseason as just a pure pass catching tight end. You saw Hendershot last year. He was very athletic. And the catching department needs to work more on the run blocking and stuff like that. Jake Ferguson seems like the best overall tight end you have. And then you got McEwen, another Michigan tight end, if I'm not mistaken, also on the roster that's more of a blocking type. So you see as if when Hindi comes back, is Schoonmaker still going to be on where he's playing at right now as the number 2 guy? Obviously, he's such a high pick. You want him on the field. But it's interesting to see how that's going to be, decided coming in the next couple games.
Yeah. And depth is never a bad problem to have, right? If you have a team that you've got solid depth that you can trust these guys with, that is an amazing problem to actually run into.
Mm-hmm.
But if it was me, I would have to bump him down to number 3. I would have to bump Scoon down to number 3. And because Ferg is obviously your number 1 guy, period.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, he's actually playing within the top 5 of tight ends in the league right now.
Yeah.
Like he's really developed that this year. I think he could still be a little bit better in his pass blocking, but his run blocking, but he's developed into a really good go get him guy for like a security blanket for Dak. But when it comes to Scoon, I really think that they would have to drop him down to 3rd.
Yeah,
I do.
And Hendershot would be your 2nd, you think?
Yeah, Hendershot would be my 2nd. And a lot of that is just the relationship that they have already and that chemistry that they have together. I mean, this is what, his 3rd season?
2nd. He was a rookie last year.
Was he? I thought this is okay. Then yeah. I mean,
well,
I don't know.
Here's the thing.
That is a tough question, though.
For me, I think I would just keep Schoonmaker at the 2 spot because you're not tied to Hendershot moving forward. I mean, he was a UDFA.
True.
Last year as a rookie, he wasn't that good where you're like super super hurt to pick another tight end that early with Schoonmaker. So I think the writing's on the wall for Hendershot. I think that he's going
Yeah.
to get some chances. But I really know that they inside of the building they really like McKeon, or McEwen, however you say that.
Yeah.
And obviously they love Jake Ferguson. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens with Hendershot. Chat's bringing up sort of underwhelming when he was on the field this year. I think Schoon earned his chances until he doesn't, and I agree with that.
I
But
could see that being a case. Honestly, I could. And I know, like, earlier in this year, you heard Dak and McCarthy come out and say Ferg was going to have a big year.
yeah,
So they saw something during camp. They saw something during preseason that they were just like, all right, we're going to them. They're developed this chemistry. They're good to it. But I see the point in that. Like, you want your position back, I'll play the guy. Earn it back. So
yeah.
I could see that happening. Yeah.
And I mean, we brought this up a little bit earlier. It's just kind of the drops, especially in the tight end group.
Yeah.
Another few drops this week with I think that Ferguson had one. You got Cooks with a drop. You had Tony Pollard with a drop. You had Gallup. I think was it Gallup? Was it?
I know Tolbert had one.
It was
I
Tolbert.
think.
That was who it was. It
Yeah.
was Tolbert. Yeah.
You're talking about that third down play, right?
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
and that goes into those numbers that I wanted to bring up. 7 of 16 on third down conversions, which is not even 50%. And typically
No.
Dallas is a very very good third down team because of Dak Prescott. It's not because they get into short and manageable. It's just because Dak Prescott's so good. But when your receivers are dropping the ball, that's what happens. And you saw that on the Monday night game with the Eagles and the Chiefs. When you
Yeah.
receive, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. If the receivers can't catch the ball, it's null and void. I mean, it doesn't matter. So you've got to figure that out because when it comes to the Eagles or it comes to the Niners, those are the teams that, man, they just, for whatever reason, they just get the balls bouncing their ways. They don't
Yeah.
have to. They don't have to overcome like deficiencies as much as other teams. I think that they've just been rolling with the same guys for so long. They have that chemistry and they have that camaraderie amongst their units that it really helps them and propels them into a stratosphere that you can't reach with just talent alone. You have to gain that chemistry with your guys and your understanding
Yeah.
that, listen, I can't always turn my head upfield so quickly. I got to just secure the ball and make the catch.
Yeah. Although that was a little tarnished this week watching the Cowboy or the Chiefs Eagles game when you see AJ going after everybody on the sideline. AJ Brown was heated during that game.
Yeah.
And he was not happy with things. But so I was thinking about it after you brought that up with the third down conversion rate. People need to remember too, in this instance, the Panthers defense actually is not that bad.
No, they're not.
They have a solid defense. And I forget the number, or I forget his name, who it was on the Panthers defense, but that dude had like
Troy Hill.
4 or 5 broke. Yeah. He had like 4 or 5 broken up passes. And I'm like,
Duck right there, Oregon Duck.
Yeah. Like, where have you been all year? Jerry, make a call.
Yeah.
Like, he was just absolutely insane.
He's not that good. I mean, he used to be a longtime Ram for a long time and played nickel corner. Pretty decent, there. Of course, it makes it a little easier when you got Jalen Ramsey.
When you have opposite
of you, and Marcus
guys,
Peters played with them for a little bit. So, I mean, Troy Hill was a nice nickel corner, but he was never that good. Kind of,
No.
I think the really big thing with a lot of the receivers, minus CD and Cooks, is top of the route separation. They don't get it very good. Like,
No.
I think that it's like if it's a slant, if you win off the jump, it's hard not to catch the ball on an easy slant unless you're going over the middle. You're just scared of the linebacker just destroying you. But when you're running those curls, those little small hitches, stuff like that, where you have to make a hard cut into the ground and come back to a ball or something like that, that's where Gallup, Tolbert, who's my other guy, Brooks, those guys they don't have that sudden stop-start ability just right now, and that's really allowing Troy Hill or those other corners that we're going to face in weeks to come to get in on those routes and kind of punch it out and possibly cause an interception. I mean, Dak is right there on the timing.
Good breaks on those plays.
Yeah, Dak
So
is there on the timing. You just got to execute a little bit better and shield. And one of the things that I look for most whenever I'm looking at scouting and draft analysis and stuff like that is, does a receiver come back to the ball, work back to the ball, and do they extend their hands into the catch? They don't let it get into their pads. They don't let it get into their body. And the reason why, it's not that their body is a hindrance to the ball or it's going to bounce off their pads. It's more so that allows the DB to get in there. And,
yeah,
so if you're extending all the way out and you're grabbing the ball and you have strong hands, that's allowing for you to make the catch more so than not. So another thing I just wanted to talk about with the Panthers game before we, kind of go on to the Thanksgiving game was, just the running game, and Tony Pollard especially. I think Tony Pollard was running hard, and the
yeah.
blocking was more so to the outside zone scheme blocking, and
Oh yeah.
just kicking it outside and using more of those rushes versus just straight up the middle. And I know that the Panthers have a stout front with a Derek Brown. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, why haven't we been doing this until now? You know what I mean?
Well, and I was just trying to pull up his stats from that game because they were a little misleading as well on Pollard's yardage, because he had, what did he have during that week? I'm trying to find it here.
I think the Cowboys ran.
61.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So he had 61 yards, but what they're not accounting for on there is like 12 lost yardage from a dumbass wildcat play,
Yeah,
which,
yep.
why do we have that in the playbook right now? I understand you want to put it on film, just have be something that people are worried about, but nah, like let's just not. Okay.
Yeah.
So he had more yards than that. So his average was actually really good. And then his touchdown run, I looked at that and I was like, is that prime Zeke out there? Because he just was running. Like, I've seen Pollard run a lot now, and this season he hasn't run like that at all. And he was never that angry. He was always more of the finesse speed guy to me.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, I'm getting in the end zone power.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was really like, he looked like he was a madman. And I love that. I do. I don't see that often from him, but that was incredible to see.
Yeah.
I would like to see, though, for a run game, though, like, what was it, 2 weeks ago, where we had Rico get us down to the 1 yard line, 2 yard line, and then they brought in Pollard. I don't want to see that anymore. If Rico gets you down there, let him punch that in. Now, I'm not saying the same would be true if Pollard gets you down there, because you may want Rico to come in and do that because he has a little bit of more powerful back. But with this week, I don't know. Like, Pollard showed in a completely different element to his game to me. So maybe he
Or
does have that there.
or hear me out. We just use Hunter Lumpke.
I would never be opposed to that, because I don't think they know how to use him properly yet. And so this is something that we've kind of talked about throughout the course of the season here. Is our run game started off the season with, okay, we paid Pollard, he's going to be our guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started to realize, okay, maybe he's not that guy without having that thunder that comes before him type deal. So they started to use Rico more. And then it's like, all right, split these touches between these two, because that is a great combo.
Mm.
But along those lines of what you're mentioning there, Looky, he can be a force if we let him have the ball. And I think that they should be using him more in that role too.
I agree. And I'm going to bring up chat real quick because KHY001's been saying some good stuff. He says that the Cowboys are currently third in drops, which is absolutely crazy. They need to get that
Wow.
figured out.
Yeah.
He was saying that on that run play to Pollard, that was a leftover page from Kellen Moore's playbook. And then
Find more of those.
if you, yeah, find more of those. Yeah. If you watch the SFTS, he said sounds from the sideline. He said that when they called that play on the line, he told
See
the
you in the
line,
end
see you in
zone.
the end zone. He was determined to score on that play. Okay. Yeah, I haven't watched Sounds of the Sidelines. I usually watch that with my wife, so I gotta watch that after this. But I gotta stay up and watch my KU basketball game tonight, even though it's freaking late at night. But anyways, yeah, I think that Tony Pollard, like you were saying, just running like a madman, running with the determination to get to the end
Yeah.
zone, and I think that he needs that anger. He needs that kind of chip on his shoulder, like, hey, I'm still a good back. I'm still that same guy that can break tackles and make people miss.
Yeah.
He just has to show it more, So
Yeah. And I'm here for it. I am. Like I said, Pollard to me, a lot of people, I even said this myself, that I think he lost a step since his injury. But I also think that a lot of it is mental, and he's starting to get over that mental gap now. He's starting to realize, all right, I've taken some hits. I'm good. I'm solid.
Yeah.
Let's get back to playing ball. But along those lines, our offensive line has not been the best this year when it comes to run blocking for him. It
Yeah.
just hasn't been. And you brought up the edge, like it hasn't usually been there this year, but it was now. And I think they're starting to get it over the last few weeks, since the Eagles game is where you started to see it really actually playing a factor a little bit. But since then, it's just been more and more that they're actually getting out there and being able to do it. Like each play, you see it consecutively getting better.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that down the stretch, because we're gonna need that run game. We are gonna need that.
Okay, two more questions for you. So, one, season's over. Pollard has been as good as he's been this game for the remainder of the season, and playoffs and stuff like that thrown out the window. We're not going to talk about that right now. Do you re-sign Pollard on a 3-year deal for 17 mil?
Or would that end up being about 5.75 a year?
Yeah, something close to that.
Honestly, I don't see him coming back.
Yeah.
I don't. And
Even on the team friendly deal, you don't?
I no, I don't see him coming back, even if it's team friendly. And I don't see him taking that, because I think he's going to want more than that no matter what. But two, I think you've just got a few good backs coming out this year that we can grab in later rounds that are going to accomplish the same thing for us. And they're going to be cheaper, because even though that may be team friendly, we still have to pay Micah. We have to pay Lamb. We have to pay Dak. Like all these guys are coming down the line that we're going to have to pay soon.
Yeah.
So
No, I like that.
we got to take advantage of that and understand that, hey, if we can get somebody else a little bit cheaper here, let's do it.
Yeah.
Now, Michigan, get Corum and I'm happy. Okay.
Yeah, that dude's yeah.
I don't think he's going to be there for us.
You guys got two good backs though, don't you?
Yeah, Edwards is the other good one. Yeah, and they're both coming out this year. But I don't see us being able to draft either one of them, honestly. But there is a pretty substantial group of running backs that's going to be coming out, as there is almost every single year.
Yeah.
But I think you can get a cheaper option, have them there for 4 or 5 years, and then replace them again, because that's kind of the trend, right? You ride a guy for a few years, maybe you get a second contract out of him a few years, but then you get a new one. Yeah. And I kind of see that happening here again.
Yeah, that's why I really, really wanted Roschon Johnson, the second Texas running back. He went to the Bears. I just thought he was a power back, really good in pass pro, and he would be the missing piece after you went away from the Zeke to fill into that role, and then Pollard could still stay in the same role. I would have loved that pick, but if you can tell me that you're going to get another back that can do the power stuff, but also has that finesse wiggle to his game, I like that as well.
Yeah, the one that I wanted was, his nickname is Tank. Is it Tank Bigsby or something?
Tank Bigsby, was it Auburn?
Yeah, that's the one that I wanted, because I was like, that's a solid like second, third round guy that you can get. You're gonna get a few years out of that contract. He's gonna be hungry, and like it's gonna be a bonus, because everybody that's picked after Bijan, they're like, he was over me.
Where did he end up going? I think he went to the Jags. I think.
Yes, I think you're right on that.
So yeah. He was another kind of a power guy, but also had some, ability to make people miss as well. I liked him. I wasn't super high on him. I really liked I like the speed guys personally. So like the Keaton Mitchell, Devin A-Chain, obviously the two big guys up at the top that got drafted. Like those guys. But beside the point, it doesn't really matter now. Zach Charbonnet, I really like Zach Charbonnet, which was
that's
Chat's bringing up.
I just also don't know how you keep Pollard and you have Deuce. Like, not that Deuce is going to be a perennial guy that he's going to be getting 1,000 yards a season or anything, but if you have a power guy, he is that perfect complement with that speed and finesse to him. I know his size is a knock, but
I think that Deuce is going to have a hard time making the team next year, in my opinion. Just because he hasn't shown you anything and I mean, he was on the active roster for like 4 or 5 straight weeks. Didn't show
they didn't use him a lot though either when he was active.
No, but I mean, you think about the first 2 weeks, they were blowing people out, and I mean, he still didn't do anything, and so it's worrisome. Like if I was the trainer for the Cowboys, I'd be like, Deuce, you got to get heavier. and you have to figure out a way to
Bulk
just
up.
hide behind your offensive lineman on pulling plays, and then just explode out. And he does a good job of that, anyways. But man, it's going to be hard for him to make the team, especially with Kevontae Turpin being the weapon that he is now. Um, because you think about it, like his one spot on the team, possibly. And I wasn't impressed with Turpin's ability to, like, he has, I don't know how to even say it. Like, he's fast and he's good, but he lacked the vision last year to
Yeah, he
take balls
absolutely
home
did.
run, you know. And that's why I was like, okay, Deuce can maybe fill the returner role, and then you can kind of mix him in shades of a run here, a run there. Now Turpin is not only a way better returner this year, in my opinion, but now he's come on as a receiver too. So that makes your position
Yeah.
as a returner even like less for Deuce. So I don't know. And I like Deuce, you know. I really do hope that he gets a chance. I just don't know if it's going to be with the Cowboys long term. So we'll see.
I I still think Turpin has those problems with vision though. I really do.
You don't think it's been better this year?
It's been better, but I think it's still not where it needs to be yet. And maybe I just have scar tissue from that 49ers playoff game
Mm-hmm.
and remember
Mm-hmm.
him making that break and then just basically tackling himself.
I don't know. Yeah, I
But
don't know what that was. But you take it
I
back with this year, though. I mean, I think it was the Eagles game. He had that big return, and he actually stayed
yeah.
behind his blockers, and he was utilizing them, and he was running with them. Last year, he would have just ran past his blockers and then got tackled,
Yeah.
or ran straight into the kicker or whoever's going to tackle him. So I
Yeah,
think
and
he
that's
has
why I
got
say it
better.
is better. It is better. I still think he's going to develop a little bit more because he's transitioning from it was the XFL, right? Or
Yeah,
was it the USF? Yeah.
XFL.
So he's transitioning from that still, and it is his second year. I mean, yeah, first year he made the Pro Bowl, he did great, and he is one of the premier punt slash kick returners in the league. Like he truly is. I just to get him to that next, like not calling him Devin Hester, but that next level, I think that he has to have that and let it slow down in his head a little bit and not try and be
Yeah,
so fast with
yeah,
it. Because once he hits that, he will be scary and it's going to be teams punting away from him again. So I think once we get to that, it's going to be a no brainer for him. But
yeah.
for
Also,
Deuce,
KHY
I never
is
saw him
bringing
as
up.
that.
Don't forget the actual return he had in the Rams game. It was called
Yeah.
back, so,
Yeah.
because of the
Because,
Nashon hold.
yeah,
Um,
which was wishy washy, but I mean,
yeah,
whatever it
yeah.
was, what it was.
Um, okay, so let's go ahead and jump into this Thanksgiving game. Um, I think that I mean, if you watched last week's games, and I don't know if you got to watch any of that Giants Commanders game because it was on the same time as the Cowboys game, but
I did
they
not.
turned the ball over 6 times, I think,
Yeah,
off the top
they
of my
did.
head. Three interceptions by Sam Howell,
Yeah.
one to lose the game. I mean, they were driving on the Giants, and they were like midfield ish, with a chance to possibly go up there and I don't know if it was to tie it or to win it. But
I think
either
it was
way,
to win.
he just threw a duck. I mean, obviously pressure in his face, and he kind of just threw it up there. But Isaiah Simmons, the Clemson Tiger slash former Arizona Cardinal, takes it to the house, and that's the end of the game. Um, I think that whenever I've been able to watch Sam Howell this year, he makes really good throws. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a question of arm talent or
No, not at
understanding
all.
where he's supposed to go. I really just think that he doesn't know how to uh, live for another down. Like, he doesn't know how to give up on a play necessarily, and that can help him in some spots, but also really hurt him in other spots
Yeah.
because he'll throw across his body, he'll put it into triple coverage, he'll hold the ball too long and get a strip sack, or just a regular sack to push them back 9, 10, 12 yards back from
Yep.
the line of scrimmage. Just those simple things for a young quarterback you can't have. You got to play a clean game, just because you don't know how to completely decipher zone coverages and understand all the nuances with what they're trying to do with their linebackers and their safeties and their DBs and stuff like that. So you
Yeah.
really got to play clean. And I think right now he's leading the league in interceptions, if I'm not mistaken, or he's up there. Actually, I think it's Josh Allen still,
Yeah. I
but
think it's Allen, and then you have Hurts and Mahomes up there too, actually.
Hurts and Mahomes are at 9. I think that Howell has 12, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, I
Didn't
mean,
Garoppolo have double digits too before he
I
went
think
out?
so. Something
Yeah.
crazy. But yeah, I mean, either way, I think that if you can get pressure on Sam Howell, you have a really, really good opportunity not only to push him in third and longs and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
also force them into turnovers. And when the Cowboys get turnovers, they are really hard to beat because you give Dak in this offense a short field. They go they're in the end zone within 2 plays. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and that defense, like they just keep feeding off of each other, honestly. Like,
Mm,
yeah, we got some marquee guys out there, and I don't care what anyone says. There's people telling me that I was crazy as soon as Diggs went down. I was like, we got Bland, we have depth, we're good. They're like, that's not Diggs. I know it's not. They're 1A and 1B to me. Okay.
mm.
And Bland has proven that throughout this season now that he's being that guy. Like those two together on the field next year is that's gonna be
I'm
scary.
excited for it, man.
I am too, but I would not even be shocked or mad if they drafted another cornerback as another
Mm,
side guy and then
they need to.
move Bland back into the slot because he is being in the slot is harder. Let's completely be honest here. Being a slot cornerback is harder than being the outside guy. And Bland has both of them on lock now. So I was never worried about that. But these guys are just going to feast on him. Your Micah, I'm guessing, is at least going to get two. I would not be surprised if he has his first 3-sack game ever, even though this week kind of was. Um, I would not be surprised about that. And I think to your point, they're going to get up in Hall's face and they're going to force him to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
And once that starts happening, he has that gunslinger quote unquote mentality of, I'm trying to win this game right now. And when you try and win the game with every pass, bad things tend to happen, especially if you're already down and you have that defense bearing down on you. I would not want to be facing that defense ever, but especially if I was him this week and
Yeah.
knowing the Eagles won again, knowing that we control our own destiny, but we have to keep winning in order to do that. So
I have a question for you. Do you
uh-oh.
think that coming off of the short week, they'll throw more at the pass rush this week, so they'll switch out bodies more so than they're used to or accustomed to, which allows players to be fresher. So you'll see a little bit more Sam Williams, you'll see a little bit more Fowler, Armstrong, those depth guys. Or do you kind of feel like, oh, we're still going to roll with our regular guys, the Micahs, the D-Laws, the Armstrongs, in that second kind of unit, and really give them the bulk of the snaps, and then the other guys come in and they're the fresh guys, or what do you kind of think about that?
You know, honestly, I kind of think that they've done a really good job this year of doing exactly that. The Panthers game, they didn't, but to the point of the Panthers game as well, they were running like up tempo quite a bit. They were
Yeah,
running a lot of no huddles. They were hurrying to the line. They were doing that the entire game, which that plays against us, right? That is a way to limit our pass rush. It absolutely is.
yeah,
But throughout the year, they've done a pretty good job, I feel like, of subbing guys in and out, getting that fresh body in there, giving people a play or two off, getting them right back in. So I'm happy with that, and I would love to see them continue that trend. But again, I think we've proven now that if we can't do that, our guys are good enough as long as they don't do stupid penalties, which we've had a lot of this year.
yeah.
But that they are good enough to overcome that as well. So I I'm good either way, but I would love to see them do exactly that and continue to keep those guys fresh. Not only that, but we have 3 games in a matter of 12 days. That's hard. Like that is hard on those guys' bodies. So the more rest we can get them, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what ultimately I want the Cowboys to, and I think that Dak right now has set in 6 fourth quarters for the season
Yeah.
now. I want him to I want him to add another one this Thursday night.
It's
Um
funny you bring that up because I was in a Twitter space with people right before this, and I mentioned that, and then I joked around about people saying that he's stat padding. I'm like, if he's stat padding, wouldn't he be playing in those
yeah,
quarters?
yeah.
Like, imagine if he would have another 500 yards passing. Like, no, he's not stat padding. This is just the way that the game plays out for them. But yeah, 6 quarters he hasn't played throughout this season because they've had a big enough week. That is insane.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
I don't think that needs to be highlighted more,
yeah,
especially for the MVP discussion. Apparently, and I don't know how much truth there is to this, but apparently I saw on Twitter that Jalen Hurts is now the favorite for MVP. I don't understand that. I guess just because they're 9-1. Um,
yeah.
but right now he has 16 touchdown throws, 9 interceptions.
And like
Um,
five
so
fumbles, four fumbles,
uh,
five fumbles,
so
one of the
yeah,
two.
right now he has a uh, under 2-1 touchdown to interception ratio,
Yeah.
and Dak is sitting at a 3-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Let that sink in a little bit and understand that the Cowboys are 7-3, the Eagles are 9-1. Not that big of a difference. Yes, of course they have beat head to head, but it was at their house. And
Yep.
I think that if you took the screen or the scoreboard off of the screen and you told me who played better, you would say the Cowboys.
Yeah,
That's not me
absolutely.
being biased. I just think that that's a fact. Um, and it's one of those things. It's like it's strange because the Eagles continue to win despite looking so suspect, and I don't know if I'm more cautiously excited for when the things don't roll their way, or if I'm worried that once they actually do start to play good, that they're gonna look unbeatable. You know what I mean?
So the Vikings last year are who the Eagles are this year to me. They win
Mm,
those close games and then they're going to falter in the playoffs really early, I feel like. But the difference between the conversation for MVP of Dak and Jalen to me comes down to one thing. The Cowboys are winning because of Dak.
yeah,
Dak has especially since that 49er game, like, yeah, we lost that game. Every aspect of the team lost that. Defense lost it, offense lost every single, there's no way to even come out of that with a positive. But since that, Dak has been the reason that we've won
yeah,
week in and week out. Even to the Eagles game, to your point, the better team lost that day. Like, we outplayed them in almost every single facet of the game. The Eagles just found a way to take advantage of things better. I'm not even going to say reffing or anything like that. They just found a better way to get it done.
mm,
But when it comes to the Eagles, they're winning in spite of Jalen Hurts' play a lot of the times. That you have the tush push brotherly shove that gets them a lot of first downs that they wouldn't otherwise get.
yeah,
He's turning the ball over a lot, like a lot, and they're winning in spite of all of that. So I think that is the determining factor to me. Like, if you just blankly put up their stats side by side, no pictures, no nothing, I think 10 out of 10 people would pick Dak's numbers and be like, that's the guy that I want right
yeah,
there. So that's what it should be determined off of, not the team's win-loss record. It's who has elevated that group the most. And to me, I maybe I'm biased because I am a Dallas fan on this, but to me, that's Dak. Just those numbers don't lie.
yeah. And another thing is, and I always bring this up with Patrick Mahomes, just throwing it so much inside of the red zone, leads
Yeah.
the league in like 5 or under yard touchdown passes thrown over the course of
Yeah.
his career. And the same argument can be shifted to Jalen Hurts because where other teams hand that to their running back, Jalen Hurts just gets to do a QB sneak for his little rushing touchdowns. And I know that some of them are not always QB sneaks or tush push, whatever stuff, but
Right.
that stuff is not impressive to me. Like, I'm sorry, that's
No.
not. And for like, you can call me a hater or whatever you want to call me, but at the end of the day, if like I can understand you throw and you're pinpoint all the way down the field and you're making all these passes and then you get rewarded at the end of the drive. But if you remember that game early on in the season, I think it was like Tampa Bay versus the Eagles. That was the big breakout game for DeAndre Swift. He got them down
That's
there
right.
so much, and then it would be the 2 yard line, and instead of handing him and rewarding him with a touchdown, they let Jalen
Jalen
Hurts run it
Hurts.
in there. And I'm like, dude. And I don't watch every single Eagles game, but at the end of the day, man, those little rushing touchdowns, they all show rushing touchdowns, but they
Yeah.
don't show the context below it, like, oh, this is inside a 1 yard line on first and goal, and instead of handing it
Yeah.
off to the running back, they just did this. So whatever, call me a Jalen Hurts hater, whatever. We're gonna get back to the Commanders game because we got off topic, but anyways, I will highlight the important players on the Commanders offense real quick. Terry McLaurin, obviously a stud wide receiver one. They got Jahan Dotson, who's kind of come on. He's more of a red zone threat, but he
Yeah.
can beat you over the top. He's got solid hands. Um, they've got Brian Robinson, which I actually really like as a running back. Then they got the kind of change up back out of the backfield in why did I forget his name right now? Help me out here. Number 24, Gibson.
Yes.
Gibson, and then they've got another wide receiver as well, um, that used to play for Carolina, Curtis Samuel. So those are their kind of offensive weapons, and then you add in Logan Thomas there at tight end. They've got a good little group of weapons. They got Eric Bieniemy as their new OC, and overall their offense is actually pretty good. Now, where and Antonio Gibson thinks, chat. Where they are kind of lacking is actually on the defensive side of the ball, and that was their strength, or supposed to be their strength coming into the season. Now they've traded two pieces away in
Yeah.
Sweat and Chase Young, but I mean they still have good pieces there on the defensive line. So I think their corners are kind of lackluster, safeties are kind of lackluster as well. Um, that Diami Brown also is another weapon for them. Chat mentioned.
Yeah.
I just I don't know that they have enough offensive, like their offense stacked against our defense. I like our matchups. And then their defense against our offense, I just feel like we've got the better guys. You kind of feel
I
that same way, or
I've never really worried about this week when I looked at the schedule, just because I I don't want to play down the Commanders because it's a divisional game and
yeah,
anybody can win a divisional game. That's the scary part. These teams know each other very well. They play each other twice a year. None of these games are ever going to be easy. But just looking at the way that this team has trended this year, the Commanders, I I'm not worried about them. There's no one out there that I'm just like, oh, he's gonna be the biggest problem. Like the only one that I would say approaches that is McLean. Like he's the only one that I'm just like, okay, scary Terry, yeah, I get it. Like
yeah,
we may need to shut him down and make sure that he doesn't go off. But beyond that, there's nothing that I don't have confidence in our one-on-one matchups with that. Like our defensive line against theirs, I am not worried by any means at all. I
yeah,
think that they're going to absolutely get dominated by that defensive line. And the opposite, I would have been concerned when they had Sweat and you just
Chase Young.
mentioned his name. Yeah. I would have been a little more worried about that. But now that they don't have him, I'm like, as long as Steele doesn't completely lose his mind again, I think we're going to be okay there
Yeah,
too.
I mean they
And
still have
Dak,
Deron Payne, who's really good.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely. But when you have three good guys versus one good guy, it's a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
easier to plan for that. And to your point of their secondary is not like exactly premier in any way at all. So I see Dak being able to absolutely carve them up, provided those guys can hold on to the ball.
yeah.
So I I don't really see any aspect of this game that really concerns me too much. But again, divisional game, anything can happen in that regard. It's the any given Sunday entire thing, but I just don't see this being one that I'm worried about.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that would kind of like would work out for the Commanders is, let's say they get the ball first and they go just straight down our throats, 12 play drive to start the game, put the pressure on the Cowboys, and then let's say the Cowboys go 3-and-out, and then they come back and they score a field goal or something like that. Then they work into their running game, and you can't really get them in their
Yeah.
feast
Then
or
we're playing into
famine
their
mode.
strength.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I kind of like about them is that they do have a nice little mix of run and pass, and especially with Eric Bieniemy, he is more so less predictable than any other OC in the league right now because he will pass on first down more so than anybody. And
Yeah.
so and that can be a good thing. You got to understand that that's like, if you see that from DQ's perspective, it's like, okay, well, Jonathan Hankins, Mozzie, they're probably going to be more on the sideline this game because we know that they like to pass on first down, second down, stuff like that. So we can use our quicker D tackles, the Osas. We can use Micah in there and those spells and stuff like that. And if you do get them in a sack situation on first down, that pushes them onto the long, second and long, which is almost
Yeah.
always going to be a pass because they want to make up for that first mistake. So we'll see how it rolls. Obviously, I think that if they want to have any chance against the Cowboys, they've got to slow the game down and really, really understand, like, hey, this is our best piece. Brian Robinson, milking the clock, getting positive yards, because if there's any weakness of the Cowboys defense, it is that run game.
Yeah. Which has been the case for
Years. Yeah.
what decade are we in? But
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like that has been our problem. I don't want to say it's been a lot better this year, but it has taken a step in the right direction. I want to at least say from
Yeah,
previous years. Still ways to go on it, no doubt at all there. But when it comes to like anything in that regard, first of all, when it comes to getting the ball, I want the ball first from now on in the season. I want our offense to go out there and set the tone. And not at this
I
three and
think
out shit like we had.
I
Like
think
I want them to
against
set that tone.
like for me, if it's an inferior opponent, I want the ball first. I just want to go down there, score a touchdown quick, put them like, okay, it's do or
Get them on
die
their
mode.
heels right
Do or
away.
die mode right now. You gotta match our touchdown. If it's a better opponent, I would rather go for the two for one kind of a thing. Score at half or before half, and then get the ball right back and really put the pressure on the other team if it's a better team.
Yeah.
Now, that's not always foolproof, because if you don't get anything
Yeah.
going, or they go and God forbid they score a touchdown early, that puts a lot of pressure on you. And especially come playoff time, where you are facing teams that are probably better than you, 49ers, Eagles, you're probably going to have to face them in their house. And that's the other point that I really wanted to hit this video, is just talking about, did the Cowboys lose the East on Monday night?
I don't want to say yes just yet. I because the Eagles still have some tough games coming up. They really do. They still play the 49ers. They play Dallas at home, which we're going to split the series with them. So that's a second loss for them. I have a
Seattle.
feeling yeah, I have a sneaky suspicion that they are going to lose to the 49ers as well. And
See,
then
I
we're
think that
looking
they
at
will too.
almost a three-way tie because Dallas is going to start. I mean, 49ers would have the break
The
in that
only thing that
at
hurts
number
the
one, but
Cowboys is that they had that stupid loss against the
the
freaking
Cardinals game.
Cardinals, and that's an
And I was at
NFC
that game and
opponent.
it pissed me off. Yeah, and that one hurt bad.
And
But
the Eagles only losses from an AFC opponent.
yeah, and I do think that that's going to play out still throughout the season. My thought is though, if we are not in the running for the number one spot, we need to start sitting our guys towards like halftime. It doesn't matter. Once we get into the playoffs, if we can't get that number one spot, nothing else matters at that point. Like rest our
Mm.
guys, get them into the postseason healthy, get them in there ready to go.
Well, the
Don't
best
sit them
position,
completely, but at least rest them so that they're not rusty, but they're just high energy, ready to go.
I think the best case scenario is the 5 seed right now, and that's just me. I mean, let's say that the Bills miraculously win in Philadelphia against the Eagles. I will feel a hell of a lot better than I do right now. But the Chiefs were my 100% game. Oh, the Chiefs are going to beat them because they have to go to the Arrowhead, and I don't know if you know where I'm at, but I'm 2 hours away from Kansas City, so I've been up to Arrowhead numerous times. I know what it's like in that atmosphere,
Yeah, it's
and
loud.
exactly, it's loud, and the fans are crazy. They're always standing up, they're cheering. So I dubbed that up as a loss. Is whenever their record or whenever their schedule came out, I was like, okay, they're gonna lose to the Chiefs. That's a gimme game for sure. They have one loss right there. They could lose to
Yeah.
this team, and I was counting the other ones. But man, the Chiefs blew it for me.
Yeah, and that's another instance of this is why I'm calling them the Vikings from last year. Is the Chiefs were the better team. They were. The Chiefs outplayed them. The problem
Yeah,
is the Chiefs, they started to try and get cute. They tried to do too much, and then they lost them the game. And if you didn't have Kelsey fumbling the ball when he did, if you
the red
had
zone interception by Mahomes.
yeah, which was what was he looking at? Like I'm still curious right
That
now.
was a bad interception. I don't
It
think
was.
people will not put Mahomes on a stake or anything like that. But
No.
his
If that was
receiver is wide
Dak,
open if you set that on the back pylon.
yeah, that's what I mean. Like I don't know why he threw it so short in that regards instead of deeper in there. It didn't make sense to me. I don't think even when I was watching it, he wasn't really under pressure or anything at that point. So
Yeah.
it wasn't a very Mahomes like throw. But and then you had the big drop in the end zone.
Hmm.
Like if he caught that, the game is completely different as well. But they just, to your point earlier, they just keep getting the ball bouncing in the right direction, so to speak, for them. And that's why I'm not too worried. Eventually, these games are going to break the opposite way. The Bills are probably going to beat them. The 49ers are probably going to beat them. And I'm not worried about us playing the Bills. I'm really not. I think our secondary is going to absolutely tear Allen apart. And
Well, that's
then
in
he's going to run it for
Buffalo,
his
so it's a
life.
little bit like if like
Yeah.
that's the thing is I don't understand who makes the schedules because all of the hard games minus the Chiefs for the Eagles have all been at home at their house. They played the
Yeah.
Dolphins at their house. They're gonna play the Niners at their house, I think. I might be wrong about no. I'm correct on that because I looked up. I was like,
I
why the
think you
hell
are
do we
correct.
play the
Yeah.
Niners at the Niners, but the Eagles get to play them at their house? I was like, what? Come on now.
Well, and to just prove whoever makes the schedules is obviously drunk. Like, I want to point this out because one of my buddies is a Seagulls fan. And he's like, do you even know what our next 3 weeks looks like? I'm like, well, I know you play us in 2. He's like, yeah. Do you know what the other games are? I'm like, no. And then he showed it to me. This week they play the 49ers. Next week they play Dallas.
No, they play the
The
Bills this week.
following,
Yeah,
are
they played the
you
Bills, then they played the Niners, then they play us.
okay? Sorry, yeah. And then the following, do you know who they play after Dallas?
They play the Giants, I believe.
The 49ers again. It's 49ers, Dallas 49ers.
No, they don't play the
I
Niners
look it
twice.
up.
There's no way.
The Seahawks, yeah, they're in their
Oh,
division.
the Seahawks. I thought you were talking
Yeah.
Eagles.
No, I'm sorry. This is why I was just
My
proving your point about
bad.
whoever makes the schedule is drunk because it's
I thought
literally
you said. I think you
49ers,
said.
Dallas 49ers.
We're gonna have to roll this back because I think that you said. I think you said Seagulls instead of Seahawks, and so I
Oh,
thought you were
yes,
saying
I
the
did. I'm sorry.
She-Gulls. And
No, I'm
so I was
sorry.
like, oh, okay, he's just saying the She-Gulls, like the
It's
Eagles.
been a long day. I've been up since 5 a.m. working. No.
Okay, no, I got you.
Yeah, the Seahawks literally play the 49ers, Dallas 49ers in a 3-week span. And I'm like, how is that a thing?
No, I hate when they do that
How
stuff.
does that occur? Like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, so
they did the same thing with the Commanders. It was like the Commanders played the Eagles, they lost. They played one more game, then they had a bye or something like that in there, or maybe they didn't, and then they played the Eagles again, like within a 3-week kind of a thing. Oh no, I think that they didn't have a bye. They had like a short week or like a Thursday nighter, and then they came back and played the Eagles or something like that.
yeah.
But yeah,
And I just no, I don't understand that, and I guarantee you, I probably did say Seagulls because it's been a long day.
Chat is saying he did say Seagulls.
Which Kai can shut his mouth, okay?
I was so confused. I was like,
my bad,
because you did say Seagulls, and I was like, maybe he just meant She-Gulls, but he got it wrong. And then you were like, they play the Niners twice. I was like, the Eagles, and there's no way. I was like, no.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, that's funny. Yeah, I just call me a pessimist, I guess, but I just think that the Eagles, yes, they have the Bills coming up. Yes, they have us. But you know, even if they lose to us and let's say that it's like we both finish, I'll just put out a number 13-4. They still have both of the top 2 tiebreakers. We don't have a tiebreaker until the third one. So it doesn't really matter. You have to beat them by an entire game in order for it to matter.
The Giants somehow to come out of nowhere and beat the Eagles is what I really do need.
Yeah.
Because then, I mean, because conference game, sure, but that's a divisional game then.
That's true.
And then if Dallas beats them, that's a wash. And then the Giants would lose that, and Dallas would have the upper hand in that regard.
I guess that's true because it does go divisional first.
Yeah.
Dang, so okay, so that's a good point. I mean, we're hedging our bets on Tommy.
Yeah,
DeVito,
we are. I mean,
but
I didn't say it was gonna happen. I just said I needed it to happen.
That's funny.
But I'm not. I don't think we're gonna get the 1 seed. I think the 1 seed was lost as soon as they beat us in their house.
Here's the best case scenario, in my opinion. I think that the Cowboys are locked in at 5. I think though the Lions, and this is if this helps you, you might actually look at this as a positive. If you lose to the Lions, but they get the number 1 seed, that actually might be advantageous for you because one, not only do you have to be the 5 seed, but the Lions go up to the 1 seed, and then you play that team right again because you're probably the lowest seed that's going to win in that first round, and you go right back to facing the Lions. So, and they've already beat you once, so you kind of figure out, okay, we've played this team, we kind of know what they want to do. You've kind of got Dan Quinn knows, okay, Ben Johnson likes to do this, which is the OC over there for the Lions.
Yeah.
And you kind of understand a little bit more what they're about. Now, obviously, you don't want to just lose because you want another team to get the 1 seed so the Eagles don't. But I'm saying if you did lose to the Lions, it wouldn't be the worst case if they ended up as the number 1 seed.
No, and that's where this season is going to start to get a little bit more difficult because it would be great if we could have a home game. It would be great if we could have a home game in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I just don't see that happening unless.
Well, the 4 seed is going to be terrible regardless.
Yeah. I mean, the NFC South still has a team,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
no, I don't see us. I don't see us hosting one, and unless something disastrous happens to the Eagles and the 49ers again, I mean, because they lost a lot of people early in the season.
Mhm.
I just don't see that happening.
Well, you got
But
to think about this. Either the Eagles or the Niners are definitely going to get one more loss because
yeah,
they face each
they
other.
face each other. Yeah.
So,
No, it is a valid point. That's why if the 49ers beat the Eagles, all of a sudden it's opened up a lot more because then I truly believe that we're going to split with them. All of a sudden we could win that division if that happens. Like that's going to be big. That game is huge. That's the one that Cowboys fans should be watching the most to see what's going to happen with the playoff picture. But until we start getting into that a little bit more, I'm not too involved with it to where I'm gonna like lose sleep over any seating or anything like
well,
that.
here's a question from chat. Would you set your starters purposely to let the Lions get the number 1 seed if you know that you cannot finish better than the 5 seed? And you have it locked? Because I'm actually positive, you play the Seahawks before you play the Lions. So, and the Seahawks are the only other team that's kind of in that realm of possibly getting the 5 seed. If you beat the Seahawks, then they'd be, well, it depends on what happens with the Eagles game and the other games we have
Right.
coming up. But if you beat the Seahawks, you could potentially be up 3 games on the Seahawks for that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, would you do that? Would you not? It's
I
obviously
don't
it's a hard
know.
question because you don't want to just chuck up a loss. You know that that's a big test. That's a litmus test. I know that's a word that Dak Prescott doesn't like, but um, that's a
Shots
test
fired.
to kind of see how you measure up to the other good team in the NFC right now, which is the Lions.
So I don't see McCarthy doing that. And the reason I
Yeah,
don't
I
see
don't either.
McCarthy doing that is because he is a player's guy. Like he likes to talk about his players and he likes to get them numbers too. Like when Lamb went to go break the record last week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was probably trying to talk Dak out of it, but Dak's like, I'm going back in. We're getting CD the record.
Yeah.
And McCarthy cares about that. He wants these guys to get these things too, because he knows that if they do, they're playing for money, they're playing for incentives, that kind of thing. So I think if in that scenario, I think what would happen is they play the first quarter, maybe the first half, and then you sit them. And then it's like, okay, whatever may be, may be. Like if we can't get this one, sure.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was talking about earlier of keep them playing. Don't let them get rusty on the sidelines there, but don't really risk an injury. Like get
Mhm.
them some meaningful play time, but let's taper it off and then go into the
Yeah,
playoffs
I
strong and
kind of like
healthy.
with what we're doing kind of right now. It's like the fourth quarter is like your rest period if you're up.
Yeah,
I would still
exactly.
play them the third because I mean the game is still within doubt. For most of these teams we have coming up, I guarantee in the third quarter. Any of
Yeah.
those teams, I mean,
And that's completely fair.
the Seahawks, Lions, Bills, Eagles. I'm trying to think of the other hard games we have. Miami.
The
Any of
Dolphins,
those
yeah.
teams can put up points quick enough to even if you did have a two position lead. Um, I don't see you start or sitting your guys after one half. So for
No.
me, like to answer that question, I would not. But if you tell me like they jump to a 13-point lead really quick, or it's kind of out of hand already or something like that, um, I probably would sit them. I don't. It's hard to say that because you want your guys to still fight. You don't want to be like, oh, we're giving up.
Yeah.
But it's like Dan Campbell's teams. They're like scrappy, hard. I don't know, man. It's weird. I really do think that the Lions is a strange matchup for the Cowboys because I think
Yeah.
that their offense is really good. Like I think that their offense can really match up with
Yeah.
our defense. But
I
their
started to say that
defense
last
is
year.
absolutely terrible where our offense should be able to put up a lot of points against them. So it's
Their
probably
defensive line isn't bad though. The Lions defensive line deserves a little bit of
eh,
credit there.
Aleem McNeil is okay at defensive tackle and Aiden Hutchinson after that, what do you have?
I mean, that's all you need. He's a Michigan guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I no, it's when it comes to that, I agree with you, but this sounds weird saying as a Cowboys fan, just like as a Cowboys fan for many years now, several decades. When this team goes down by 2 scores, I'm not as anxious or worried as I used to be. It's no longer the game's over. I'm done. We're out of here. It's okay. Defense, tighten up, like do your job.
Yeah,
Micah,
yeah,
be that dude, and Dak, go out there and do your thing. Like it's. I was telling people earlier this week that final drive during the Eagles game. Normally for that, I'd be standing up, I'd be like screaming at the TV, I would just be a nervous wreck. But I was like, all right, go out there and do your thing, guys. Let's go. Like
yeah.
I just feel different. So even if they go down by 2, I'm not too concerned. But as soon as we get up by 2 to 3, 3 is the sweet point for me. If we go up by 3, sit everybody. I don't care. Micah, if you got to strap him down to the bench, you do it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't care who you need to hire. Hire Gilbert Brown to come in and just sit on his lap on the bench so the dude can't move. Like, I don't care.
Well, I will say this. The Cowboys are not, their starters are not better than the Niners or the Eagles, in my opinion. Just the 22 starters. Where the Cowboys make up the discrepancy is with the depth. So you can
Yes.
rotate and you can have your guys fresher more so than those other teams. You've seen it with the Niners. They dropped 3 straight games without 2 players. Obviously, they were really big players to what they do, but you see how much of an impact that had. The Eagles, if the Eagles lost, let's say a Lane Johnson for a long time, then you stack on a Darius Slay, like the Cowboys have with the Tyron Smith out for a long time and Trey Diggs out for the season, and then their best linebacker, who is, I don't even know who that would be for them. They have trash linebackers. Let's just say Reddick. Obviously Reddick's better than LVE, but I'm just saying, if you took those players off, their team looks a lot
It's completely different.
versus the Cowboys that have filled those roles and actually in some spots been better.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. The depth is a great problem to have with this team. And that's why we talked about a little bit earlier, picking up Shaq Leonard. I would not be opposed to them doing that.
Oh,
I
dude,
would
if you could
love to
get
have
that
that
guy,
depth there.
go get
Yeah,
him.
I would love to have that depth there. Don't pick him up off waivers. Get him in as a free agent because you don't want to absorb that contract, but pick him up. Like, let's get more depth in there.
Yep.
And I'm a little offended, though. You say the 49ers have a better 22 out there because Purdy over Dak, really?
Not Purdy. I'm taking
Okay.
Dak, but let's just go straight down. Ayuk,
Their offensive line,
Debo Samuel.
yeah.
I would take CD over both of those guys. Don't get me wrong.
I would too.
But
yeah.
you got George Kittle over Jake Ferguson easily.
I would.
You got Trent Williams over Tyron Smith easily.
Only because of the injury. If Tyron wasn't as injury prone, I would keep every day of the week. I would take him.
Yeah,
honestly.
I mean, I think that those guys are kind of whatever.
They're plug and play. They're basically the same.
They have a better running back. They have.
I mean, CMC.
I think that if Micah, obviously, Nick Bosa, both of them are on the same kind of level. Their second guy.
I think Micah gets the advantage because Bosa, like he's a hands on ground guy, right? He is always rushing. Micah has that capability to cover, and he can drop back when he needs to.
Yes, but it's like
he's not the best.
It's almost like, bro,
he's got it.
This is what I don't like arguments like that, because it's like almost like, well, my cornerback is a better tackler than your cornerback. Bro, you ask your cornerback to tackle maybe 2 plays a game.
All right, okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I see it. Yeah.
So I think that they have a better wide receiver too. I think that they have a much better running back. I think that their system offensively is much better. Now they did lose Hufanga, so that's a big hit on them.
Yeah, that hurts.
I think that their corners are worse than ours, but they're a lot more physical, and
I would agree.
Their linebackers absolutely kill our
Warner
linebackers.
Is a monster.
Like, Dre Greenlaw's a monster too. I mean, both of those guys are much better. Their defensive tackles are better than ours. With Javon Hargrave, and then who's their other guy? Armstead, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And then they got Chase Young now. They have Randy Gregory. I mean, like, come on now. They're pretty stacked.
Randy Gregory, though, like, Mr.
Yeah,
Penalty dude.
yes,
Like,
but that's like their Randy Gregory is almost like their Dante Fowler, and I would rather have Randy Gregory than Dante Fowler.
to kind of just pivot, but we can go right back here. When they drafted Gregory, was I the only Cowboys fan that was offended when they gave him the number 94?
I mean, I didn't really even think about it like that, but
I'm like, you just had DeMarcus Ware wearing that number. You do not give it
yeah,
to
yeah.
this dude. Like, I'm sorry. No. That bothered. But anyways, moving on. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I really do. I just think that the biggest discrepancy between the Niners and the Cowboys is just physicality. Um, and they're not afraid to hit you in the mouth, and that's kind of why I like their guys a little bit better than ours.
And I had a problem
I don't know.
with the whole after the game, after the 49ers game, when Kittle showed his shirt and then Micah had his podcast and he talked about, he's like, now
Yeah,
it's personal. I'm like, I don't want to hear that.
yeah,
Okay.
dude.
Like the last time I heard that was last season when you said that and you lost to them too. And I love Micah. Like he is my boy, but you do not say
Yeah,
that
yeah.
after they literally just punched you in the mouth twice in a row, well, 3 times in a row, really.
They
And you're
pulled,
just out there
dude,
like, now it's personal. No, it was personal after the first one.
bro.
Okay.
If everybody wasn't watching the first time, it's almost like the school bully. Like they
Yeah.
pulled your pants down in class, and only a couple kids saw it the first time around. Second time, it's out at recess. They pull your pants down. No, now this time it's at the pep rally or something. Like they did it in front of everybody. Sunday
Yeah.
night football, and not only did they do that, but they straight embarrassed you.
Yeah. It was, I mean, let's call it what it was. It was an ass whooping. And to come out afterwards and say, like the jersey swap thing, people were tearing on Micah for that. I'm like, I don't have a problem with that. I understand at the end of the day, these are guys, their friends are playing the game. They want to swap jerseys. I get you can do it behind the scenes, but I don't have a problem with that personally.
I don't know.
But when it comes to the now it's personal, that I have a big problem with. Like,
man,
I don't know.
for me, I just like, I don't care how like good of friends you are. If you're facing somebody and you're lined up against them and you're like, you want to beat them because you want
Oh
to
yeah,
hold that.
absolutely.
Like if you've been friends with anybody in your life that you're really good friends with, you always try to hold something over their head versus like for like as men as like a competition thing. Like, bro, you can't beat me 1-on-1 in basketball, or you can't do like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And it's just how men are. It's just competitive. And
Yeah, by
so
nature we are.
when you are like that and you get beat that bad, that's just sting. I don't know who said the line, but I hate losing more than I love winning. But that's how you should feel after that loss 3 times in a row. Like, come on.
Yeah, see, this is the double-edged sword to me because I don't mind them going out and doing the jersey swap, but I have a big problem with the statements after the fact.
Yeah, yeah.
And that I I don't forgive that. If they see them again this season, Micah better have an MVP worthy game because if not,
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you say from now on at all. Like, period. I love you, dude, but I don't care a damn thing of what you're gonna say anymore. And
Yeah.
I did see Kai ask a question earlier about if Bland gets a pick six, is he DPOY conversation? I think he's in that now. Like,
Did he ask
I
that?
would be, um, if Deron Bland gets another pick six, is he in the defensive player of the year conversation?
Yeah, I think he's there now.
I think he is now. I honestly do. Do I think he wins it? No. If it ended today, I don't think you can really give it to anybody but Garrett.
Yep. Yep.
And that's loving Micah, but I think having two Cowboys on the team or in that conversation of Micah and Bland is huge and speaks volumes for this defense. I really do. And I don't see how people can downplay that.
I think that absolutely he's all pro thus far in the season.
Bare minimum. Yeah.
And it makes me sad because Trey Diggs was playing at an all pro level too. And imagine
Yes.
both of the all pro spots for the NFC side for corner. First
Well, that
team
first
and
pick
second
six.
team would have been Cowboys. That would have been so awesome.
Yeah.
But, it is what it is.
Yeah, that first pick six of the year was Trayvon knocking the ball out,
Uh-huh.
Bland yoink in the end zone. Like those two just like we talked about this before. It's going to be scary next year with those two. And you get a third guy on the outside, you move Bland back into the corner or into the slot. That is going to be rough. It is
Yeah.
going to be rough for other teams. But if he gets another 1 or 2 pick sixes this year, I don't know how you overlook that, especially with his grading that he's
No,
getting
if he
week in
gets
and week out.
if he beats the record, automatic, at the very least, second team All Pro.
Second place, yeah.
If he gets like 2 and like, I think bare minimum, he's probably gonna have like 10 interceptions. And
he's having a year.
I mean, he already
really
has
is.
6. So you factor in, you got 2 games against Washington. I mean, come on now.
I don't want to jinx it, but I think he's going to get it this week. I really do. I think he's going to get it against the Commanders. I almost called him their other name. It would not shock me if he does.
I'm all for it, man.
Because people keep disrespecting him. It's like when Diggs had his breakout year. People were just like, "Oh, he's not going to. I'm just going to keep attacking him."
This is a question for you.
I'm here for it.
Here's the question for you: better year, Diggs's year, and I know that Bland's isn't completely up yet. Diggs's year or Bland's thus far?
I will say to this point, to this week in the season, Bland's. And the reason that I'm going to go that route versus Diggs is Diggs had more picks, I believe, up to this point. But Bland's had more pick sixes. He's actually put those points up on the board themselves and fired that entire defense up like no other. Yeah. And especially coming off the bench. Like, I know that shouldn't play into factor, but it really does. Like, he was the dude, all right, I'm number 3 on this roster, and he owned that spot. He was going to be great at that spot. Now, all of a sudden, he's bumped, in my opinion, to the number 1 guy, because Gilly's good, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a shell of what he was. But he's still holding it down well enough. But Bland has elevated it to a level that is just different. So I would take his. Which one would you take? Because I would take Bland's year over Diggs' year.
It's so hard to say.
It is.
I will say that Diggs has absolutely better ball skills at just contorting his body and getting interceptions and stuff like that. But
I mean, he was a receiver, so that makes sense.
Both of them were receivers. I don't know if you know
I didn't think Bland. No, I didn't know Bland was.
Bland was a wide receiver in high school, and then whenever he went to Fresno State and stuff like that, transitioned to corner.
That makes so much sense. Just because you look at them, they both have that instinct. So that's logical.
So, but I will say Bland, something about his interceptions are just so sticky and so like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, his interceptions remind me so much of, like, there's like interceptions there. No, not Dion. There's interceptions like Diggs's interceptions remind me of like Marcus Peters, if that makes sense. Like, he's just really good at, like, if he knows that you're gonna run a route, he's gonna jump that and boom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Bland's interceptions more so are, and I don't know if there's really a player that comes to my mind, maybe like a Jalen Ramsey kind of, with just the coverage and just the stickiness in coverage. And then the awareness and the DB mentality to get my head around and then see ball, get ball kind of a thing.
Burst.
You know what I mean?
He has a burst coming out when he needs to. Like that last one this week against Carolina, he was like, 2 yards behind that receiver? And then all of a sudden, bam, he is there right in front of the ball, grabbing it, doing his roll. And then to have the wherewithal to be like, where am I? End zone. And then just shot towards it. Like, I don't see how you could take Diggs' year over Bland's. Like, they're both great. Don't get me wrong at all.
The thing that was that was impressive about Diggs is he had a streak of game after game after game after
with a
game.
pick.
And I think that didn't end until week 6. So and at week 6 he had 7 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. And then that week 8 he didn't have one, and then he follows it back up and getting interceptions again. His was like coming up, and then it kind of tailed off to the end of the season.
Yeah.
Versus Bland's has kind of more been just like steady upwards trajectory.
Yeah, people talk about it and then they stop, and then all of a sudden he's like, by the way, I'm still here. And he picks one and takes it to the house.
Yeah, exactly.
And apparently he talked about this during the interview after the game. He was just like, before that drive, I went in and I told the boys, I'm getting one right now. Be ready.
Yeah.
And he went out and did it. And it was funny because literally like 2 minutes before that play, I tweeted something along the lines of, "All right, defense, get out there. It's time for an
Turnover.
interception.
I
It's time
saw
for a
that.
turnover.
You said
Mike could get a strip
a strip
sack."
sack. Yep.
Yeah, I'm like,
I
go
saw
get
that.
it. And then all of a sudden, literally, I hit send. I see it go through, and I look up, drum band pick. I'm like, or that'll work.
Yeah.
Like I didn't care. It was time to shut the game down and get that turnover because they were. There's been a few weeks now where we haven't gotten that, and that's strange for this defense because they've led the league. I don't know if they're leading again this year, but the last 2 years they've led it, and it's time to get that third one out. Like, and that's what I'm seeing with them. That's why when I tweeted that, I'm just like, all right, let's go. Bland, you're in there, boy. Go get it.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
And I don't know, is Bland giving up as many yards or touchdowns as Diggs did?
Absolutely not. But
then
here is one thing I will admit. Diggs' year, he did have a gauntlet of wide receivers he had to face.
That's true.
And I don't think a lot of people realize like how many good wide receivers he faced that year. And he that same year, and he shut down a Justin Jefferson, and he shut down an AJ Brown. Or was it AJ Brown? It was somebody like that. Another like really good wide receiver that he shut down 2 really good wide receivers, but then he kind of let like Kendrick Bourne kind of do him in. So
Jefferson gets shut down a lot by the Cowboys. Like
by Diggs,
yeah. Like I think throughout every year we played him, he may have 120, 150 yards total if you combine all the
all
games.
3. Yeah.
Maybe.
No, that's who it was. They or no, it wasn't. I was gonna say it was Chase, but it wasn't Chase because we faced the Bengals last year. He shut down. Maybe. I mean, he did shut down Chase that game too. But I'm saying the year that he had all the interceptions, he faced another really big wide receiver that was like a monster.
Was it Evans? Mike Evans?
Yeah.
I'd have to look back at that season.
Yeah, he faced Mike Evans because that was week 1 where he got the interception off of Leonard Fournette's jumped up in the air.
Okay, yeah, Kai just said it was Evans. Yeah, okay. So then, yeah, it was him.
Okay, I gotta ask this real quick. His name is actually Kai?
That's just what, yeah.
That's what you call him?
If you've ever, yeah, if you've ever been in Twitter Spaces or anything, that's, I think, confirm, deny, but that's just what you say is Kai, right?
Okay, well, see, since they were all capitalized, I just said KHY. I didn't think it was Kai. Like,
I don't think he minds either way, but
I don't. Yeah. Okay, Kai,
or she minds either way. I don't know, but yeah.
No, I'm gonna say Kai from now on, I guess, because that's much easier. But I just all of the capitalization made it feel like it was some type of like acronym or something. I don't know. I don't know. Anyways, glad to clear that up finally. But yeah, I think that Bland's is more impressive just as somebody that kind of watches football and understands kind of what you want to see in a DB. I think that he looks just more fluid versus Diggs. It seemed more like he understood some route concepts and he knew how to exploit those. So yeah, Kyler is my name. Kai is for short. There you go.
Logical.
Mystery is solved. Anyways, but yeah, I think that Diggs just kind of was more of a receiver playing corner, and I think Bland is just a corner through and through that has the instincts and the know-how of a wide receiver playing it in the past. But he really is honed in on his skills and what he knows he can get away with and stuff like that.
And the really nice thing with this, I don't know if you follow Diggs at all on Twitter, but he hypes Bland up all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's awesome to kind of see that between these guys. None of them are just out for themselves. I mean, sure, contract-wise, I guarantee you they are, which that's just
Diggs already got paid, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. But, like, that's going to be a tough choice, too, when it comes down to that later on. That's why I hope they draft a cornerback. And I'm sorry, I like Gilly, but I hope that they draft one because then the price is going to be cheapper than what Gilly could possibly want.
Gilly's done. Trust me.
Yeah.
They're not going to re-sign Gilly unless it's, like, really team-friendly.
Yeah, and I again, I'd be okay with that, but because you're going to have to pay Bland in a few years. And like I said, you got to pay all these other guys, too. Yeah. But I love that with these guys. Like, they're always out there hyping each other up, and it's not just the defense. It is the offense minus Lamb. Lamb is the one who's kind of the outlier out there who, when shit goes wrong, you need to leave him by himself Like you
Yeah.
saw it during the Cardinal game. Did he do it during the Patriots game too? I think you just see him standing off away from the team on the sideline, just stewing.
Yeah.
But ever since that meeting with where him and Dak had, where the conversation was slightly leaked about him being like, "Hey, what do you need? I got you." Um, it's been different. Those two have just been on another level together.
Well,
So
his body language is a little iffy this week.
it was, and I don't know if that was contributed to him all of a sudden now appearing on the injury report with his,
Yeah, I
I think it
saw
was his
that
ankle,
ankle. Yep.
but I want to, the pessimistic side of my brain just goes, that's why. Like it's just that it's not actual problems, but or the optimistic side, the pessimistic side is sitting there just going, don't let this wear itself like, hey,
Yeah,
again,
yeah, yeah.
guys, because I don't know. And then I have memories of Dez jumping through my head of him standing on the sidelines, hyping everybody up, and then the media calling it being a diva. No, he was literally out there like trying to pump
Yeah.
everybody up. So I don't know. I think CD needs to kind of, I think he was more appeased once he got that touchdown during that game because he was going to everybody but him, really. And just the routes weren't there from what I saw.
Yeah.
So I don't
Well,
know.
they were really making it a point to stop CD. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah. And they did a good job of it.
Yeah, they did. I thought that they actually played a really good game for what they were asked to do, and I think that the hurry up, as far as offensively wise, really did help Bryce
Yeah.
Young, just because it just didn't allow DQ to get into anything super exotic, for him to have to decipher as a young quarterback. So that helped him as well. Ultimately, though, they just didn't have enough talent. Here's a question though
And
that I wanted to
penalties.
ask. Yeah, and penalties.
Penalties killed them.
Okay, so Jaron Curse, you got Tyler Biotish. I'm trying to think who else. LVE. Um, who else is up there? Gilmore, and there's one more. I thought. I think. I think it might be
Or
Jonathan Hankins. Those guys are all on 1-year deals, I believe. Are any of those guys somebody that you would look to re-sign for next year? Why or why not?
I think I don't think I'd bring back Biotish. I don't. But I also think that that depends on what their plans are throughout the draft, what Will McClay is telling them to do. Because if there's a few good centers out there, and if they can yoink one of those, I think that needs to be the biggest part of our draft is getting offensive linemen right now and shoring that up for them. And that I just feel like you need to replace Tyrone and you need to replace Biotish. And
Mm.
then we'll be pretty strong there. Hankins, I could see them bringing him back potentially, but other than that, I don't see LVE. I thought it was a 2-year contract, so
Is
he's
it?
got 1 year left. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's got 1 year left.
Okay, so then the year that I think he played last year, maybe on the 1 year. Then this is
Yeah,
just off the top of my head. So
no,
if it's
yeah, you're
wrong,
good.
you know.
But even that being said, I don't know if he will be back, and I kind of don't want him to be,
Mm.
and just for his health sake, like he is a very like big part of that defense in regards to being like a vocal part of it
A
and
leader.
kind of something that people look up to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But for his health, I don't think I'd want him to come back because once you start getting those neck injuries and that starts accruing time and time again,
yeah,
the game, life is bigger than the game. Plus, next year we'll have Overshown back again. And I'm very big on that dude. I think he's going to be a great player for us. And then again, you just go after somebody else in the draft. Or if they do pick up Leonard, our linebacker core is pretty well set then.
yeah.
Like, so I don't think I have to worry about that there. And I don't remember who the other ones were. Gilly, I don't see coming back either, unless it's very team friendly, like we talked about. Um, who else was there?
Jaron Curse. See, I'm on that. Like, I really like Jaron Curse, but this season has kind of made me sour on him a little bit. Are you kind
Yeah,
of
but
in the
what's
same
the
boat?
alternative? You have Hooker
Well, you have
and
Hooker and then Donovan Wilson, but you got to think you got those other guys, Wanye Thomas, Marquise Bell, that can fill into that role as well. And then you got to also think Overshown has some safety versatility as well.
That starts to be a really sticky situation though, because then you have Bell, who is an overshown type that has that capability to play linebacker or safety. So I would probably bring Curse back. I probably would, based on if it's a team friendly deal or not. I would probably bring him back. I
But then you're
don't
paying,
know.
excuse me, then you're paying 3 safeties. Because you've already
Yeah,
paid
but
Donovan Wilson. You just paid Malik Hooker in the offseason. And right now you're already paying Jaron Curse. And you've got people to pay, like you mentioned earlier. CD, Micah Parsons. You got to re-up Dak.
when does Tyrone Smith contract fall off?
They restructured it. I think that technically he has 1 or 2 more years left.
He won't be back next year. I'd be shocked if he came back next year.
I wouldn't be.
I don't know.
Because you got to think is Jerry loves his guys, and a
I know
Tyron
he
Smith
does.
is a guy that
Yeah.
he loves. So and that's one thing. Like I
don't
really
see him, man.
hope
I don't
that
see it.
I really hope that they bring Tyron Smith back, but they allow.
Don't let him practice ever.
No,
just game.
My thing is, but you still have to draft a tackle.
We have
and
to.
Whether
we have
or
to
not,
build that lineup.
Whether or not that's because Terrence Steele isn't good enough, even though after post ACL or Tyron Smith is injured, whatever the case is, get a tackle. Because I said in the draft process, I would have much rather had a tackle versus Mozzie Smith, but I would have much rather had a Joey Porter who lasted till the second round than a Mozzie Smith. That's just me, but
Well, here's a bigger question for you, and this is one that I really hate asking, but does DQ come back next year?
I think he does.
I hope he does.
I think that the NFL is shifting more towards offensive-minded head coaches, and I personally think that Doug McDermott is the only legit defensive head coach that's done anything for a little while in the league right now. Obviously, you got D'Amico Ryans that they're in Houston that's doing pretty well. But I think that Doug McDermott, as a defensive mind, is going to get fired after this year if the Bills don't do anything. I think that his name completely Brandon Staley for the Chargers, who's a defensive-minded head coach, he's going to get fired. I'm just trying to go through my head and think of defensive-minded head coaches here, but it's not very much. Already, it's not very much. And the ones that are in the league right now that are head coaches, they're not really doing the best job. You know what I mean?
No.
Other than and I mean, you might actually see old why am I forgetting his name? Belichick. Yeah, Belichick might be done after this year too.
It wouldn't surprise me if he did. And I know in a few spaces I've been in, people are talking about how, he's going to go somewhere else. No, he's not. Belichick, once he leaves the Patriots, he's gone. He is done. He's not going to coach anywhere else.
Yeah.
I don't even see him becoming a commentator anywhere else. He doesn't have the personality for it. That would be like watching Witten try and be an announcer again. Like, no, we don't.
I forgot about that, man.
That. Yeah. Although he's apparently doing really well coaching for his sons.
High school, yep.
But I would love to see Dan Quinn stay because all those guys love him. All that defense absolutely loves Dan Quinn, and he can get them running through a wall and then asking to build up another one just to crash through that again for them. And I don't know if you saw the video of when they announced the Mozzie draft with Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
And Mike is like showing everybody the text. He's like, I was talking to DQ. I told him, go get this dude. And they did. So
here's a question for you. And you can answer this, what you were going to say first, but after that, just so I don't forget it, because I'm a forgetful person.
Good. No, yeah, I understand.
Do you think that Dan Quinn has a little bit too much leeway in the draft process? Finish your original thought real quick, though.
I forgot it already, but no, because this is a good question. It's
because here's my thought process here, and you can say I'm wrong or not. I think Dan Quinn is really good at finding black sheeps of other teams and pulling them onto our roster. But as far as drafting guys from the draft, his guys, quote unquote, the Eric Scotts, Not very good. Mozzie hasn't been very good. You think about oh, what's his name? Why am I forgetting? Um, not the last year's draft. Who was our picks? Tyler Smith. Jake Ferguson was a fourth rounder. Who else did we have in there?
Who was our second last year?
Oh gosh, Kai, you got to help us out here, buddy. Our second rounder last year was Sam Williams. Sam Williams.
He's kind of a hit. He is. It's taking time to develop, but he is kind of a hit.
He's all right. Who was our third rounder last year?
I'm pulling it up now.
A Nashon Wright. That was another pick that was a dud.
Eric Scott Jr., D'Amico.
Kelvin Joseph, another one. Which I don't know if that was necessarily DQ more or less, but I know Nashon Wright definitely
okay,
was.
so Jalen Tolbert was round 3, but that's obviously offense. And I love what I'm seeing from Tolbert this year. I am. I just want to throw that out there. He came out during this offseason. He came out. He's like, I was not prepared. It was a big ego check. He took ownership of it, and he's gone out there and he's busted his butt. I'm happy with what I see from him.
And he's outsnapped Gallup the past 2 games, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, I'm okay with that. Deron Bland, he was a pick. Damone Clark.
I don't think Deron Bland was a necessarily a DQ pick, though. I'm talking about for sure the DQ guys. Nashon Wright, Eric Scott Jr., and it's too early to tell on him, but I'm just saying Mozzie Smith, 100%. And then Overshown, obviously, Overshown is we can't say anything about Overshown.
He was playing good in the preseason. Granted, that is preseason.
Yeah.
So you got to take that with a grain of salt.
Deuce Vaughn looked like a Hall of Famer in preseason. So no, but so I mean, of those picks though, I'm saying that were 100% DQ picks. They haven't been all that great.
Yeah, I mean, Cox, I would say, was one. He's not even on the team.
No. Cox was definitely not a DQ pick. That was more of a scouts pick. Cox was because they passed. I mean, from what I remember, the scouts all had Cox as like a third rounder, and he lasted all the way to like the 5th or 6th, and they were like, "This guy is still here. We have to pick him." So it was a scouts pick, but
it's a generic answer, but go with the way that Will McClay tells you to go, because I think he's the true mad scientist back there. With the dude has the book from Back to the Future that he knows what's going to happen in 3 years. Like, he really does. Because there's not a whole lot that he's told him to go after and do that fails. And you were talking about finding like the black sheep and stuff. And the point that I would have to combat that is, do we remember Ronaldo McLean? I mean, McLean Rolando came in. Yeah. Sorry, Rolando. And I was so like, why are we doing this? Why are we picking this guy?
That wasn't with DQ though.
No, and that's my point. That was a Will McClay thing. I think the credit needs to go more towards Will McClay than it does towards Dan Quinn. Like, I honestly think that it does. I think it's more Quinn listening to McClay and Jerry listening to McClay than it is anything else. He is the closest thing that this team has had to a GM that I can ever think of since Jerry's taken over. Like, he truly is. Because they give him a lot of credit and a lot of leeway for things.
I mean, like, here's where it's like, it's so hard to meet like the scouts with the coaches, because ultimately at the end of the day, like, the scouts can give you as much talent as you can have, but if they don't fit the scheme, it doesn't matter at the end of the day. So it takes like a DQ to have a vision. For like J-Ron Curse, like coming out of Clemson, he was just an athletic freak, big, tall dude.
Yeah.
Didn't even really play for the Vikings, minus special teams. And Dan Quinn was like, let me have this guy. I think I can do something with him. Saw something. And actually, I believe that the story goes, supposedly, this is hearsay, but supposedly some scout, some player personnel guy in the NFL was like, "Yo, I scouted this guy. I kind of liked him. I think that we could utilize him," because Dan Quinn was saying, "Hey, I need a versatile safety hybrid kind of a guy." And they said, "Okay, this is one of the guys that we kind of aim at that we think could do this." They brought in J-Ron Curse, and then Dan Quinn was like, "Wow, I'm impressed with how much you actually know about the game and how smart you are. let's figure out how to utilize you. And then they got him on the field, and he was actually pretty good. And so it takes that vision from both sides. But not only
Yeah.
that, but you've got Wanye Thomas, Marquise Bell kind of coming in. Dan Quinn's revitalized Malik Hooker, found a way to actually protect him, which he could not stay healthy on the Colts. Torn ACL, torn Achilles, I believe, both of those ending season enders. So they found a way to get him healthy and just use him as a free range safety. I don't know if you remember early on in Donovan Wilson's career in his preseason and stuff like that out of Texas A&M, he was more of like a ball hawking kind of safety. Like he would just make plays on balls. Now
I was excited when I would see that, but I don't really see it anymore.
Yeah, now he's like a hard hitting, like tough guy. It's crazy to think that he completely flipped that coin, and he's that guy, that the tone setter. Then you think about the guys that are, I'm trying to think of the other linebacker right now. Used to play for the Falcons. DeMonte KZ. Yeah. DeMonte KZ, and obviously he had knowledge of KZ because he used to be the Falcons head coach, but brings him over.
I think he actually drafted him there, didn't he?
Yeah. So KZ, or no, they. I think you're thinking of the other guy. I don't know if that KZ was drafted by the. It was the other guy that came over as well. I think there was another guy.
I think you're right. I can't remember his name.
I can't remember his name either. But yeah, either way, it doesn't really matter. But he had visions for all of those guys, and I think he's pretty good at figuring out how to utilize players best. I just don't know that he's like, you know how he tries to put on the scout hat and like goes and like he was seen at Sam Williams' workout. Like you knew that Dan Quinn was like, oh, I like this guy. And then we drafted him as a result when a lot of people had 3rd-round grades on Sam Williams. So for me, as I'm kind of like, let the scouts do the scout thing and ask them like, hey, we're a 4-3 front, draft accordingly. This is what we kind of look for. But ultimately, you guys are the guys that are out there on the road learning about these players, learning their characteristics, meeting with their parents and stuff like that. We're going to put the trust in you. And so for me, I would rather not have any coaches involved in that except for Mike McCarthy, which is just on a kind of oversee kind of a thing. Like, I like this guy. He's going to fit in with the locker room kind of a thing.
I think it needs to be a hand-in-hand relationship. I do. Because that's not something that you can just, you got to have the vision of what that coach wants to do with it and work that in with the scouting. And if you just have the scouting being like, okay, here's this guy's numbers, 4.54 in the 40, like here's his vert, all these kind of things. And then the tendencies they have of ball hawk versus hard hitter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think they need to see that play and the coach be like, okay, but what about this dude on the tape? Like, show me more of number 53. I want to see what he's doing here. And then like going from that and working together in that regards. So I don't think there's any true wrong answer in that regard. Like I said, I am a big McClay fan, so I can see him having the ultimate say in things of if they do or don't do something with McCarthy, but well, not the ultimate say, because the final say is obviously Jerry. But I see them all having major input to it. And then kind of going from there with that of who do we pick, who's going to fit in? And then your point of who's going to fit into the chemistry of the locker room, all of that as well.
Yeah.
So I don't know. When is McClay's contract over? Because we need to find a way to lock him down until 2097.
Who even knows, man? Yeah, I think that Steven probably has whispered in Will's ears like, hey man, when my dad, kind of kicks it, you're just gonna be the GM.
Nothing would make, you know what? Actually, there is one thing that would make me happier. Bringing Moose Johnson in as a GM. Not a popular opinion, but after, Tag, after watching his show with him, I'm like, damn,
he's knowledgeable.
He is. And I mean, he's learning a lot of that from the USFL, which he's running right now. I'm pretty sure it's the USFL that he's running. That he's like the head of that organization and everything that he's doing there. And then you couple that with his football knowledge that he has an insane football IQ.
Yeah.
And a lot of that came from his commentating days, his playing days, everything like that. I would not be opposed to that. And I think Cowboys fans would actually kind of like that closing the circle with him as well. But
Yeah.
I would be happy if McClay got it as well. I really would, because I think he's very well deserving of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I would go with McClay. Um, but yeah, I watched that interview too, and he's a really really knowledgeable guy as well.
I do wonder too. I saw Kai kind of mention this, and I've thought of it before. Has DQ been promised the job by Jerry once McCarthy leaves?
I
Like,
I would err on probably. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, why would you not tell your guy that you want to keep around that? You know, kind of like, hey, if this
right.
doesn't work out, you know, we got you over here. You've made it to the Super Bowl. We're fully, you know, aware that you have the skills
You
to
know
get to a,
the
you know,
guys love you.
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I think that probably has been whispered. I just don't know how you could move on from McCarthy despite what happens in this season.
Yeah, no, and I am not the biggest fan of McCarthy ever. I saw him kind of drive the Packers into the ground with his stale play calling over time and everything like that. His horrible clock management, that is just, let's be fair, he's always had horrible clock management. But what he's doing here is different. And I know when he got fired from the Packers, he kind of went underground for a while and he stayed in that area, in the Green Bay area. Like that's where he was living at.
Yeah.
And everything that I understood was he started to get really deep into analytics, like
Uh-huh.
very deep into analytics, and brought all these guys in around him, was seeing all these tendencies, seeing all these trends. And I think he's putting a lot of that to really good use now. And people are giving him a lot of credit for this season and for his play calling. I'm like, yes, absolutely. We need to give him his roses for that. But I think what needs to be given his roses more for is him giving Dak his leniency, him giving Dak the freedom
Yeah.
and being like, here's what I need you to do. Go out here. Here's the plays. And then Dak going out there, and where he didn't have this with Kellen Moore of move in. I need you to move in here. I need you to be an extra blocker. I mean, that was highlighted perfectly during that Panthers game during the CD touchdown. He waved
Yep.
Ferguson in to pick up that extra blocker and open up CD on the outside.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest contribution that McCarthy has given these guys, is that knowledge and that freedom over time, and they're taking full advantage of it. So I don't see McCarthy being fired anytime soon. I mean,
Yeah,
3 years of 12 win seasons is going to be,
it would have to be like a catastrophic thing for them to move on. And
yeah,
if they did move on, I don't know that I would hire DQ as the head coach. I would probably go out and try to lure away a Ben Johnson or somebody like that that's offensive minded, that's proven that they are a smart, you know, intelligent person that can kind of scheme players open more so than hire the defensive head coach type. But you know, if Dan Quinn ends up being the coach, I'm not going to be mad at it because I do trust him with the
we
players
could always
and hyping them up.
sign that offensive coordinator. What's his name? He's doing really, really well now. Kellen Moore. We could always sign him as their head coach. I
Oh
said that with a
gosh,
straight face. Okay.
Kellen Moore,
No,
get out of here, get out of
I
here.
mean,
You know,
he
Kellen
was
Moore
interviewed
actually
for
might
it.
end up being the next coach of the Chargers. Believe it or
It would
not.
not surprise me.
Believe it or not.
Well, after like his
Um,
first or second year as offensive coordinator, wasn't he being requested to interview for jobs and he turned down head coaching?
yeah, he turned down one, and
Was it for Boise State or something? It wasn't in the
no,
NFL, I
he took
believe.
that. It
But
was in the NFL.
oh,
It was in the NFL. I can't remember what
wasn't
team it
the
was,
Bills, was
but he
it?
turned one down because he's like, I don't feel prepared or whatever. And then that's when Dan Quinn, whenever he was going, he asked, or this is the story, I guess. He was like, would you want to kind of see how these things are done, kind of a thing. And then he told him, um, you know, I don't know if I want to go with you or whatever. And then Dan Quinn basically told him, like, listen, whether you take the job or you don't, or they offer the job or they don't, these things are good for you to go and interview for, at least to get the experience and stuff like that. And that's when he started to kind of take more of those interviews and stuff like that. But anyways, beside the point, I think we had a good discussion tonight, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate you getting on. Um,
absolutely.
you can find him at Falcon FALKKON00 on Twitter. Hopefully that's right.
Yeah,
Um, and you know, I think that it's just fun to just get on here with like-minded Cowboys fans, talk some ball, and
absolutely.
the chat wasn't popping as much as I wanted to. But hey,
it's all right.
It's always fun talking, and now you're officially part of the show, and a friend of the show, more so than just the chat.
Happy to be.
And I'm looking forward to getting Kai on for one of the Cowboys fan forums that I try to do with a bunch of different people on at once, and should be a fun experience whenever I get him on as well. So
yeah, definitely.
Well, I'm gonna start trying to get in more groups on Twitter and do that stuff as well, because I think that can kind of build more of the audience here.
Yeah, the Twitter Spaces are amazing for not only networking, but for kind of opinions and talking things out with people as well. And like you said, just talking football, because there's a lot of it that happens like that. There's other stuff too, obviously, but there's a lot of football that gets talked about.
For sure. So thank you for jumping on again, man. I appreciate you, and we'll have to do it again.
Absolutely.
All righty. We'll see you guys. Go ahead and leave a like down below, comment, subscribe if you're not, and we'll catch you next week on Tuesday.
Yeah. Forget what you got, none of it matters until you don't work from the top. I'm talking non-stop, squad. They've been down with me for years, and none of them asking for squad. Fire, out of the gutter, don't stutter, I'm taking my shots. Pop, block, out the noise, some others, my brothers and me, we going off. Bippity pop, talking that ish, I'm an empty